Melfiora is calmly sitting on a park bench enjoying what looks like a perfectly made sandwich. She eats with such satisfaction that it catches the attention of an older man passing by. Melfiora lifts the basket of food and offers to share. The man eagerly accepts and takes a generous bite, and his eyes light up immediately. The flavors are so rich and well-balanced that he blurts out that he could eat it forever. However, when he casually asks about the meat, Melfiora calmly replies that it's made from backhorn. At that moment, his expression shifts. Backhorns are known as dangerous monsters filled with lethal poison. Realizing what he's just eaten, the man abruptly vomits. He can't comprehend how anyone, especially a noblewoman, would consume something so deadly, unless she's the very person he's heard rumors about. Melfiora, on the other hand, remains completely unbothered, continuing to enjoy her food. To her, even the foulest monsters can be turned into a delicious dish if prepared properly. Others may not understand this, but she's confident that someday she'll find someone who does. The following day, Melfiora attends a grand banquet hosted for the nobles. The place is filled with tables overflowing with exquisite dishes. She's genuinely enjoying herself, eating everything she can, when a familiar noblewoman approaches. It's the attendant, Mrs. Talbot. With a firm tone, Mrs. Talbot reminds her of the true reason she's there. With this, Melfiora's cheerful expression fades instantly. The real purpose of the banquet is to celebrate the bountiful harvest and allow nobles to test the season's offerings. More importantly, it serves as a social gathering for the nobles to meet potential partners. As the daughter of a count, Melfiora is expected to find a suitable fiancé there. Faced with her stepmother's threat to send her to a convent if she fails to find a partner this year, Melfiora has little choice but to comply. Even her father says he would accept someone as lowly as a knight, so long as they are decent, just so she can finally secure a match. Reluctantly, she attends the banquet. However, as she scans the room, she notices the nobles whispering harshly behind her. In that moment, Melfiora realizes that no noble truly wants to be associated with her. Melfiora decides to head to another section of the banquet where the knights have gathered, thinking she might find a potential fiancé among those who don't recognize her. However, her thoughts are abruptly interrupted when chaos erupts and an enraged monster suddenly appears. The guests instantly scream and scatter, fleeing in panic. Amid the commotion, Melfiora notices an elderly couple struggling on the ground. She rushes to them and urges them to escape together, but before they can move, a mad backhorn emerges right in front of them. Her instinct tells her to run, but seeing the couple's terrified faces, Melfiora instead dashes away while shouting to draw the beast's attention, making herself the bait. The monster charges toward her, but just as it's about to strike, she closes her eyes. Then a man arrives, beheading the beast in the blink of an eye. Standing before her is a man with a blood-stained sword. The whispers around her rise, talking about the infamous blood-mad Duke Rogier. His unusual eyes lock with hers, and Melfiora stares in awe. Yet Rogier misreads her gaze, assuming she's terrified of him. He has always been described as an eccentric fiend, and yet before her, he seems strikingly beautiful. Shaking herself back to reality, Melfiora rises gracefully and introduces herself with proper noble etiquette. Rogier pauses, surprised that she still thinks of formalities after such a close call. He asks if she's unharmed, but Melfiora focuses on him instead. Blood from the slain backhorn has splattered across his face. With concern, she urges him to rinse it off immediately. She explains that mad backhorn blood carries magical toxins, and if it's swallowed or absorbed, it can cause intense stomach aches and fever. She also adds that if the creature hadn't been mad, its blood could have been used to make sausages with the proper preparation. With that, she insists he clean himself and change at once before any ill effects occur. Rogier, however, seems far more intrigued by Melfiora's extensive knowledge of monsters. She quickly apologizes for talking too much, worried she may have overstepped. But Rogier simply hands her a vial of purified water, pointing out that she might have ingested some of the beast's blood herself. Rogier's gaze then falls on her gown, which is stained heavily with blood. Without hesitation, he takes her hand, intending to find her a change of clothes. Melfiora hesitates, insisting that the stains can be removed by soaking them in water. Rogier, however, is more concerned that the presence of beast blood might disturb her, but she appears utterly unfazed. She casually mentions butchering a monster last week and being covered in even more blood back then. Rogier is taken aback, shocked by what she just said. When he asks for her name, Melfiora formally introduces herself. Rogier bursts into laughter because of this, finally understanding who she is. He's heard plenty of stories about her, the noblewoman who eats monsters, famously nicknamed the Voracious Villainess. In their world, magical beasts and unusual plants, collectively called monsters, are unlike any ordinary living creatures. Consuming them is dangerous, as their blood contains magical toxins that can cause vomiting, fever, or worse. However, Melfiora is the rare exception. Known as the Voracious Villainess, she's far more interested in their culinary potential. As strange as it may seem, the fallen beast actually looks delicious to her. She's already imagining the dishes she could prepare from its meat, because if she's going to eat it, it might as well be tasty. Roger's stunned expression makes her think she's made another mistake, and Melfiora awkwardly smiles to hide her embarrassment. Unexpectedly, this flusters Rogier, who quickly averts his face. When she asks what's wrong, his reaction only intensifies and he hurriedly composes himself before taking her hand again. It's at this moment that Melfiora realizes that this man, unlike many others, isn't frightened by her at all. As they walk, Rogier suddenly pauses before asking Melfiora if backhorn meat actually tastes good. Assuming she's had it before, he's curious about its flavor. Melfiora hesitates but eventually admits that it is delicious. She's received this question many times, and her honest answers usually make people avoid her. She explains that backhorn meat tastes similar to beef, though it's tougher, so she puts extra effort into tenderizing it to make it delicious. Instead of being disturbed, Rogier becomes intrigued and asks how she removes the magical toxins. This stuns Melfiora, as no one has ever shown genuine interest in it before. Unlike everyone else, Rogier actually listens carefully and believes her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Melfiora lowers her head to hide her tears. Regardless, Melfiora explains that she removes the magical toxins from beasts by bleeding them using special tools and purification spells. Hearing this, Rogier's eyes light up with curiosity. He asks if she could prepare some monster meat for him sometime. Melfiora is taken aback and asks if he has a strong digestive system, explaining that magical toxins aren't easy to deal with, but if the beast isn't mad, its meat is just like any other. However, her warning only makes Rogier even more eager to try it. He brings Melfiora to his pavilion and tells her to make herself comfortable. They're soon greeted by Chaos, Rogier's aide. Rogier introduces them to each other before instructing Chaos to bring Melfiora a change of clothes. Melfiora enters one of the tents in the pavilion and is immediately struck by the number of weapons displayed inside. Rogier has also prepared a tub of water for her to wash up, though she insists that he should go first. Without hesitation, Rogier removes his upper clothing, stunning Melfiora even more. She's seen hunters and knights wash outdoors before, but this time feels different, and yet her eyes can't seem to look away. Rogier suddenly speaks, asking what's wrong. Caught off guard, Melfiora answers honestly, admitting that his physique is distracting her. Rogier is genuinely surprised, seemingly unaware of how striking his figure is. Melfiora recalls how effortlessly his arms move when he struck down the beast, a truly majestic sight. But Rogier simply brushes off her comment and begins washing up in the tub. With that, Melfiora steps forward to join him in washing up as well. While washing, Melfiora shyly asks if she could perhaps learn to slay beasts herself. Rogier doesn't disagree, but after glancing at her slender arms, he insists that she should leave the slaying to him. He doesn't realize the weight of his words at first, but when he sees her expression, he quickly tries to defend himself, explaining that it's only because he's already accustomed to fighting. Changing the subject, Rogier asks if there's any particular meat she wants to try so he can hunt it down for her. This immediately lights up Melfiora's eyes with excitement. His territory is known for rare kinds of monsters not found in her lands. To her, that feels more like a luxury rather than a threat. Rogier notices the blood on Melfiora's face and gently wipes it off. In return, Melfiora helps him wash his face too, carefully caressing his cheeks and running her fingers through his hair. For a brief moment, the two share an intimate atmosphere until Chaos barges in and interrupts them. He scolds Rogier for standing in front of Melfiora half-naked, pointing out how inappropriate it is to expose himself to a count's daughter. Later, Melfiora changes into a beautiful dress that Rogier borrowed from the queen. She wears it gracefully, while Rogier casually holds the beast's head. Melfiora is amazed by this and boldly exclaims that she wishes she could slay monsters too. Her reaction surprises the others, as most noble women would faint at the sight. Chaos watches the two and secretly thinks his master may have finally met his match. Rogier escorts Melfiora back to her carriage, where she formally thanks him and bids farewell. Yet even as they part ways, both clearly wish to see each other again, already planning gifts for their next meeting. Rogier promises he will slay a royal moodle for her, making Melfiora's mouth water at the thought. Trying not to sound demanding, she gently reminds him that a beast tastes better if captured alive. With this, Rogier grows more excited, seeing it as a challenge worth trying. Days pass, and Melfiora visits Rogier's pavilion once again, this time bringing a special gift. She presents him with jerky made from Scat's bit, a beast found in her territory. Without hesitation, Rogier takes a bite, startling Chaos, who rushes to stop him because the food hasn't gone through the poison tester. Yet Rogier loves it. He even forces Chaos to take a bite, and soon, both of them are enjoying the jerky already. Rogier tells Melfiora that he's looking forward to trying more of her monster dishes. His words leave her stunned. She's so used to people thinking she's strange for her unusual tastes, even though she sees nothing wrong with them. But the Duke's warm acceptance touches her deeply. Overwhelmed, Melfiora hides her face as tears of joy well up in her eyes. When asked, Melfiora pretends that she's simply reluctant to say goodbye today, and Rogier mirrors her hesitation. Still, they have no choice but to part ways once more. As she leaves, Roger promises that they'll talk again next time. Melfira has never been fond of banquets, yet after meeting him there, she truly enjoyed herself. She wonders if he's merely being polite or just curious about her, but deep down, she can't help wanting to keep her hopes high. Snow is already falling over the Marcharade lands when Melfira returns from her travels. Before she can enter the house, her father, Ghislaine, is already waiting outside, waving her over with a furious expression. She assumes he's angry because she failed to find a suitable fiancé, but Ghislaine reveals he received a letter from Roger, formally asking for her hand. Melfira initially thinks he's simply asking for her help, but Ghislaine clarifies that it's a marriage proposal. The request shocks him, as Roger's position as Duke doesn't match their family's humble status, so receiving such a letter leaves him flustered. Even Melfira sweats at this. Meanwhile, in the pavilion, Roger and Maxim meet inside a tent. Roger reports everything that happened during their hunt, explaining how he carried out his plan without casualties. Maxim is satisfied with the result, but he notices Roger's formal tone and brings it up. While Maxim addresses him casually, Roger speaks with distance. He once called Maxim Brother Maxim, but he deliberately avoids it now. Although Maxim and Roger are blood siblings, everything changed 17 years ago when Maxim was named Crown Prince and Roger was adopted by the Galbraiths. Since then, an invisible line has separated them. With Roger's stubbornness, Maxim has no choice but to conform to his formal manner. Then he suddenly notices the basket in Roger's hand. Roger tries to hide it, but Maxim presses for answers. Surprisingly, Maxim seems to know about Roger and Melfira, and bringing this up catches Roger off guard. Taking advantage of the distraction, Maxim snatches a piece of jerky from the basket. Roger tries to stop him, but Maxim quickly takes a bite. Impressed by the taste, Maxim asks about the meat, and Roger admits it's scat-spit jerky, which is a spiny monster, so Maxim grows intrigued and assumes Melfira prepared it for him. When Maxim hears his brother speak of Melfira so fondly, he asks what Roger plans to do next, knowing it's unlike him to take an interest in someone so quickly. Roger, however, brushes off his words, saying he'll be on standby before leaving to return to his men, ignoring Maxim's attempt to stop him. Roger is frustrated by his brother's words, but he can't deny that Maxim has a point. After all, he rarely talks to anyone like that. Melfira's image lingers in his mind, still unable to believe that she's actually called the voracious villainess. He remembers the way she fearlessly shielded an elderly couple at the banquet. Deep down, he knows she has managed to captivate him completely. Chaos and several men soon approach Roger to report that the Backhorn's habitat is now under control. Pleased with the news, Roger also relays Maxim's orders, but Chaos seems more curious about whether Melfira will attend their future banquets. Roger notices his teasing and immediately suspects Chaos of telling Maxim about her, though Chaos quickly denies it. Left alone, Roger's thoughts drift back to Melfira. He remembers how she didn't believe him at first. The tears in her eyes reveal how accustomed she is to being pushed away. With that, he makes a vow, promising he'll never let her wear that expression again. Meanwhile, back at home, Melfira still can't believe they received a letter from Roger. Ghislaine informs her that it arrived 7 days ago, delivered by a messenger riding a blaze eagle encased in a luxurious jewel bearing the Galbraith crest. Hearing this, Melfira regrets not seeing the magnificent bird herself, and even her father admits how beautiful its feathers are before steering the conversation back to the proposal. Ghislaine wants to know exactly what happened between her and the Duke at the banquet. Melfira recounts everything honestly, but Ghislaine remains unconvinced, as it was only their first meeting after all. As she reads the letter again, Melfira doubts the sincerity of Roger's words, suspecting there must be another motive behind his sudden proposal. Ghislaine also shares her doubts and decides to draft a response while they think of a proper reason to turn him down. That same night, Melfira has just finished her bath when she notices the letter on her table. She reads it again, admiring the Duke's name, but her thoughts quickly return to her father's words. It was only their first meeting, and perhaps their excitement over monster meat had carried them away. Then a thought sparks in her mind, realizing Roger likely has no one to share his fascination with monsters and has no one to talk to about them. Since Melfira enjoys eating monsters, she can imagine the connection he might have felt between them. Suddenly, the letter in her hand begins to glow. It starts by recalling their encounter at the banquet and mentions his subordinates trying the jerky she made. But in the final line, he writes that he will visit her on the 18th of the month of Sirius. Melfira and Ghislaine exchange confused glances upon reading this, realizing that the said date is already tomorrow. Going back to her room, Melfira feels flustered, though she still doubts Roger's true intentions. Yet with their meeting scheduled for tomorrow, there's no point in worrying too much. Seeking comfort, she holds the framed photo of herself with her mother from when she was younger. Speaking to it as if her mother were there, she tells her about Roger's proposal and wonders whether the Duke will appreciate the viability of all types of meat, just as her mother once had. Her thoughts drift back to those childhood days watching their family lands with her mother. The land was cold and barren, and her mother had asked her for help. It was then that Melfiora inherited her mother's research. Even though the world has yet to recognize it, she works tirelessly, hoping one day it will. The next day, her stepmother Celia knocks on Melfiora's door and finds her still unprepared. Melfiora fumbles for excuses, though the truth is she hasn't even woken up until Celia arrived. Celia walks in and inspects the room before scolding Melfiora for neglecting her appearance after being told to find a fiancé, calling it a disgrace to her noble title. She also brings up Rogier, warning that despite his high birth, he is infamous as a violent, bloodthirsty, blood-mad duke. Then suddenly, cries of dragons fill the air. Melfiora rushes to the window and sees a flock of dragons soaring across the sky. Looking closer, she realizes Rogier has arrived, riding his dragon along with a few of his men. As they speak briefly from the window, Celia orders Melfiora to shut it immediately, but she refuses. Instead, she tells Rogier to wait in the pastures in the north, where they will have their formal discussion about his marriage proposal. Without hesitation, Rogier departs and Melfiora, after closing the windows, remains stunned and flustered, hiding her face behind the curtains to conceal her reaction. So many thoughts and admiration run through Melfiora's mind that she almost doesn't notice Celia calling her repeatedly. Her stepmother explains that she isn't feeling well and wants Melfiora to inform Ghislaine for her. Though Melfiora wishes Celia would stay for the discussion about the marriage proposal, Celia insists on leaving, claiming her father's permission is enough. She even makes harsh remarks about Rogier, finding it improper that he arrived on a dragon, but Melfiora cannot accept her insults. Before Celia leaves, Melfiora boldly declares that she will accept the Duke's proposal, leaving her stepmother to storm off in fury. Later in the pasture, Melfiora finally meets Rogier and they catch up, though she can't help feeling self-conscious about her appearance. Chaos also soon arrives, apologizing for the earlier confusion and sudden visit, explaining that Rogier could no longer wait for her response. As the three continue to talk, Rogier suddenly becomes serious and admits he is curious about one thing. With this, he holds Melfiora's hair intently and inspects it, wondering why it is so soft and fluffy, even though Melfiora thinks it is simply a mess. Then they decide to head over to Rogier's gift to her. Rogier points to a big sack that contains his gift. Melfiora finds it hard to believe, but the thing inside is actually a monster, just like Rogier promised in their last meeting. This instantly makes Melfiora beam with joy as she hides her face to keep her reaction from showing. She can't believe he actually brought one, so she thanks him wholeheartedly for his gift and even wishes to take a little peek at what's inside. With that, Rogier grants her wish, but the sack doesn't seem to be moving, so Melfiora assumes the monster is already dead. However, Rogier simply takes the cover off to let her see for herself. Inside is a royal moodle with sharp horns and majestic fur. But it's not just any other moodle, it is a golden one, which means after being eaten it will be of good purpose too. Moodles are usually white monsters with horns and their pelts are highly prized. Golden moodles in particular are famous for their use in creating clothing, though their meat often goes to waste afterward. The one Rogier presents to her is fattened up for winter, and since it is a herbivore, she believes its meat will taste better than any other monster. As Melfiora shares her knowledge about the creature, Rogier looks impressed. He then takes her hand and places it over the moodle's heart. That is when she realizes the creature is still alive. Rogier has only put it to sleep using magic. Deep inside, Melfiora is already imagining the grand feast she can prepare using its meat. Despite her thoughts, she is overwhelmed with excitement, flustered, and unable to contain her joy, and she keeps thanking Rogier repeatedly. As Ghislaine and his men also arrive, the two parties begin to formally talk. Ghislaine and Rogier greet each other properly before moving straight to the main topic. Melfiora almost forgets that Rogier is actually there to ask for her hand in marriage. While the conversation continues, Melfiora asks her father for permission to allow the dragons to hunt in the mountains, but he mistakenly assumes the moodle is meant to be food for them. Unbeknownst to him, it is actually for his daughter. Ghislaine is surprised to learn that the Duke already knows about Melfiora's unusual taste for monsters, but Melfiora mentions that Rogier even wants to taste her cooking, so she would also like to open a research facility for him. Ghislaine hesitates for a moment, unsure about it at first, but Rogier suddenly speaks up. He explains that he understands Melfiora's habits and is fully aware of her reputation. Realizing Rogier is truly interested in Melfiora, Ghislaine is touched, but Rogier quickly speaks, explaining that they need to deal with the moodle before it wakes up. Only then does Ghislaine realize the creature is still alive. They come closer to inspect it, and Ghislaine admits it is both a valuable and dangerous gift. Since Rogier is the one who asked Melfiora to cook it for him, he wants to watch her prepare it. Ghislaine notices how fond Rogier is of her unusual hobby and grants his request, allowing his dragons to feel at home and ordering Melfiora to accompany Rogier to the research facility. They ride the dragons to reach the place, and since it is Melfiora's first time, she is thrilled by the experience. Rogier jokingly warns her not to eat his dragons, and Melfiora defends herself earnestly. Soon, the research facility comes into view below, so Melfiora orders Rogier to descend. Her voice, however, carries a hint of nervousness. It is her first time showing someone how she prepares monster meat, and this place is her late mother's research facility. As they approach, Melfiora reflects on her situation. If the dude truly accepts her, her father will surely feel relieved. Determined, she decides to let Rogier see everything, and with that, she will also let him see the true reason behind her unusual taste for monsters. That quiet thought lingers in her mind, wondering how Rogier will react once he learns the truth. At the facility, Rogier immediately notices the magic circle with ancient language carved into the floor. Melfiora explains that the circle was originally created by her mother, but she made some improvements to it as well. This will also be where they begin processing the monster. As Rogier studies the inscriptions, he realizes that the circle is designed to allow Melfiora to absorb the magical toxins from monsters. However, he can tell that this circle alone isn't powerful enough to fully extract everything. Melfiora leads him deeper into the facility, where she retrieves another tool she uses, a cloudy quartz that extracts both magical energy and blood. Rogier is impressed by how exquisitely crafted it is, but that's not all. Once Melfiora channels her magic into it, the quartz appearance begins to change gradually. Then, Melfiora makes a bold request to Rogier. She wants to see the decapitation technique he once used on monsters again. Outside, the golden noodle is already laid out in the magic circle, and Melfiora prepares to begin her ritual. However, handling such a massive beast can be challenging, so she asks for the knight's assistance. Rogier raises his hand to signal them, and the men quickly rush to the noodle to start deherring it. Rogier explains that his knights are not only responsible for subjugating monsters, but also for collecting their pelts, horns, and claws for resources. In fact, shaving fur is one of their specialties, so they manage to finish deherring the noodle in no time. Melfiora then places her hand on the golden fur collected from the noodle, but more than anything, she's thrilled by the thought of the different dishes she'll be able to create using the royal noodle's flesh. At the same time, Rogier prepares to decapitate the monster. But before he can act, Melfiora recites a prayer for the creature as her way of showing respect for its precious life. She then uses the magical language to activate the circle, and only then does she allow Rogier to move. Rogier swiftly draws his sword and, with a single blow, beheads the massive monster. As expected, Melfiora is astonished by his flawless swordsmanship. Afterward, Melfiora begins extracting the noodle's magical energy and blood. She uses the cloudy quartz and once again recites a prayer in the magical language. This time, the noodle's blood starts to levitate and flow into the quartz. As the liquid continues to pour in, Melfiora notices the sheer amount being absorbed. Cracks begin to appear across the quartz's surface due to the overwhelming volume. This startles her, as this has never happened before, but she can't stop the ritual now. Seeing her distress, Rogier immediately asks what he can do to help, and Melfiora instructs him to fetch another piece of cloudy quartz. Rogier acts swiftly, replacing the cracked one with a new one. With this, Melfiora regains confidence that she'll be able to finish the extraction. She then recites her final prayer, channeling her magic until everything is fully absorbed into the quartz. However, the ritual drains much of her strength, and she nearly collapses, but Rogier moves in time to catch her. Afterward, the knights inspect the noodle's body. They expect it to look disheveled after such a powerful ritual, but to their surprise, it remains fresh and intact. Melfiora explains that she only extracts magical energy and blood, as removing moisture would make the meat tough. By retaining its natural moisture, the flesh will have a flavorful texture. Rogier begins to wonder if Melfiora was the one who devised such impressive methods, but she gives credit to her mother for the original concept. She shares a story from 17 years ago during the Great Drought, when many people suffered from starvation. Their family's territory was poor and lacked resources due to infertile soil. In response, her mother began researching ways to utilize monsters as a food source. If this research could be perfected, troublesome monsters could be transformed into a valuable supply of delicious meat that might save starving people. So after her mother passed away, Melfiora vowed to continue her work. However, she admits that recently she's been enjoying the taste of rare monsters, so she uses the process partly for her personal interest. Then Rogier asks about the extracted magical energy from the monster, and Melfiora casually explains that it's mainly used for making fire, as it can sustain both cooking and lighting for up to 2 months. She admits she's never really considered any other purposes for it, so Rogier suddenly bursts into laughter. Although Melfiora's innocent use of the energy isn't problematic, her research surpasses even that of royal mages, so if such concentrated magical energy were mishandled, it could easily be weaponized to destroy nations. Melfiora freezes, realizing she had never thought about it before, as she's used to handling smaller monsters. Rogier's tone then softens, explaining that while rumors remain rumors, careless handling of such power could lead to great tragedies. With that, he vows to protect her from any harm that might come her way, which deeply touches Melfiora. However, Rogier then brings up another rumor, something about her supposedly sipping blood. Melfiora quickly denies it, assuring him she has never done such a thing. His expression then turns serious as he admires her striking hair and eyes, declaring that he'd be willing to lay down his life for her. Melfiora snaps back, thinking he's just teasing, but he insists he's sincere. Flustered, she compliments his eyes, hair, and even his cape and dragons in return. Both grow increasingly embarrassed until chaos interrupts the moment. Melfiora quickly shifts the topic, saying they should start preparing the meat already. As Rogier watches his dragons devour their food, Melfiora arrives with the official hunting permit they'll need to enter the mountains. Rogier is delighted, explaining that his dragons have been complaining about their current meals as they have quite the insatiable appetite. While they talk, Rogier's stomach suddenly rumbles, surprising even him. It's actually the first time he's felt such a strong hunger, but the royal moodle's flesh laid out before them is enough to stir anyone's appetite. Talking about the meat makes them both even hungrier, so they decide to slice off a small portion to grill and eat. Naturally, they target the rarest and most prized cuts, so the two exchange a knowing smile, already anticipating their little taste test before the rest of the work begins. They prepare small cuts of meat for a quick barbecue, and Rogier hands Melfiora a bottle of special herbs. She takes a small taste and is instantly delighted by the rich aroma and flavor. It turns out Rogier took it from their head chef without asking. Laughing it off, they remind themselves that this is just a simple taste test, not them sneaking around behind their companions' backs. They sprinkle the herbs over the meat, then use the monster's blood to ignite a steady flame. Once done, they place the meat on the grill. For safety's sake, they agree to wait until it's fully cooked before eating. However, Rogier can't help but complain impatiently. As the meat continues to look more appetizing, Rogier grows increasingly impatient, though it still needs more time on the grill. Just then, Chaos spots them cooking and immediately accuses the two of sneaking snacks while acting all lovey-dovey. Rogier quickly defends himself, insisting they weren't doing anything suspicious, though the scene is clearly obvious. To divert the situation, Rogier hands Chaos the hunting permit and tells him to take and feed the dragons while he stays behind with Melfiora. Chaos teases him, pointing out that the dragons are already whining from hunger while he's sneaking bites. Reluctantly, Rogier offers him one skewer, but before they know it, the rest of the men appear behind Chaos, expecting their share as well. Melfiora gives her permission since the knights are usually stuck eating awful monster meat. So they cook more and the men gather around the grill. Rogier prepares a plate for himself, but Chaos interrupts, insisting on tasting it first. Rogier refuses, prompting Chaos to tease that Melfiora wouldn't like his attitude. The two end up bickering like children over the first bite. Finally, Melfiora calls Chaos over to test a skewer she's prepared. With one bite, Chaos is instantly delighted. She casually asks if he feels anything strange, though what she truly wants to know is whether it tastes good. Chaos doesn't disappoint, showering the meat with praise and complimenting it multiple times. He even remarks that it would pair perfectly with a good drink, and Melfiora is happy to hear this as well. Hearing Chaos praise, Rogier grows increasingly impatient, unable to wait any longer to eat without confirmation that the meat is completely safe. He immediately asks Chaos if he feels unwell, but the effects of magical toxins usually take time to manifest, sometimes up to 30 minutes or even the next day. Rogier, however, clearly can't wait until morning, so he urges Chaos to declare the testing complete and announces that they should start eating. Melfiora, who's just as excited, tells the knights to dig in before the meat grows cold. She assures them that if anyone feels ill, she has medication prepared in advance to treat it. With that, the group erupts in cheerful shouts and begins feasting on the monster meat skewers. With the first bite, everyone reacts the same way, with pure delight. The meat is delicious and tender, just as expected from a herbivorous monster. Rogier approaches Melfiora to compliment her brilliance, but she humbly insists that it was her mother's research that made everything possible. Still, Rogier admits he never imagined monster meat could taste this good. In the past, he had eaten it without proper processing, which was always a challenge, and everyone else agrees. They eagerly ask Melfiora to teach them her methods and even suggest bringing another beast for practice. They regret how much good meat they've wasted, but Melfiora understands that eating monsters is still considered taboo. As Rogier continues enjoying the skewers, Melfiora suddenly calls out to him. He assumes it's about the food, but instead she wants to bring him into the facility. At the same time, one of the knights quietly watches them leave with curiosity. Inside the laboratory, they're greeted by piles of books and materials. Rogier is immediately stunned by the sight. His eyes scan the room until he notices the Scatsbit's spines neatly arranged nearby. Melfiora explains she used them for hunting, and her resourcefulness only deepens Rogier's admiration for her. As Melfiora prepares tea, Rogier learns that she usually hunts monsters alone, which surprises him. He had assumed the Count, or at least others, supported her research, but many in her land have mixed feelings about what she does. Even the very people her mother once saved during the famine refused to admit they ate monster meat to survive. Melfiora further explains that many in their land practice animism, making the consumption of monster meat a taboo. Despite this, she continues her mother's research. Rogier then asks why she keeps pursuing her work in a place where no one understands her. With teary eyes, Melfiora recalls the tragedy that happened 17 years ago, the very same incident that led to Rogier's adoption by the Galbraith family. To continue their conversation, Rogier gently pulls Melfiora to sit on the couch. He senses that speaking face-to-face is difficult for her, so he tells her she doesn't need to look at him while talking. He wants to hear more about her story. After all, he came here to ask for her hand, but Rogier already knows from his personal investigations that Melfiora is shunned by high society. She believes that marrying her will only ruin his reputation and become a burden. However, Rogier makes it clear that he doesn't want her to give up her research. Instead, he invites her to continue it freely within his household, where she would have full support. Melfiora assumes he's merely curious about her work, so she offers her assistance, but Rogier interrupts, saying the only thing he truly wants to know is how she feels about him. Being widely known as the blood-mad Duke who slaughters monsters, Rogier wants to know Melfiora's opinion of him. In that moment, Melfiora realizes that when he said he wanted to understand her, what he really meant was understanding her feelings toward him. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.